All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the Isla Vista Community Services District. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded. Jonathan, can you do roll call?
Yes, Director Brandt.
Here.
Dr. Aguilar.
Here.
Dr. Bertrand.
Here.
Dr. Freeman.
Here.
Dr. Flaherty.
Here.
Dr. Topliff.
Here.
Dr. Deschler.
Here.
Right. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place, Anascoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. With that, we're going to move to the consent agenda. We have one item that's the minutes. Do any directors have items or anything they want to pull? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Made by Topliff. Is there a second?
I'll second, but oh wait, I'm sorry. I have a different document in front of me. I thought we had other items. Second as is. Thank you.
All right. There's been a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, we'll go back to the board for a roll call vote.
Dr. Brandt.
Yes.
Dr. Flaherty.
Yes.
Dr. Freeman.
Yes.
Dr. Topliff.
Yes.
Dr. Bertrand.
Yes.
Dr. Deschler. Director Aguilar.
Yes.
You say Director Deschler?
Yeah.
Was I there? Did you see my face? Oh Lord, we're not starting off well. Yes.
All right. You win the award for most enthusiastic yes. Motion passes. We're going to move now to the public comment period. This is the time for any member of the public to speak on any matter that is not on tonight's agenda. If you'd like to speak, you can hit the raise hand button, or you can put something in the chat and we will call on you. Do any members of the public have items they'd like to address? Not seeing any hands or anything in the chat. We're going to close general public comment and we're going to move to discussion and action items. The first on our agenda is Spring Festival 2022 RFP update. And I will hand it over to Jonathan to introduce this item.
Great. Thank you. Well, this is an update for the board and not a decision point. Direction would be good, but there's no plan or contract or anything of the sort to approve. So it's an update on our RFP process with the Spring Festival. A lot of this report are things that we've presented before. It's just a recap of. Sorry, there's a lot of people coming into the waiting room at the same time. One day we have two people do this. So the report just goes over what our goals were, what our objectives and deliverables we had put out in the RFP. So another one. Sorry, this is distracting. It's like one person coming in every 10 seconds. So we did get one proposal back. Okay, another person's in the waiting room. We did get one proposal back from the California Beer Festival, and they another waiting room. All right, and that's another one. I'm just gonna maybe give it 1 second. There's a steady stream coming in. Okay, so sorry about that. So we got one proposal back from the company that does the California Beer Festival. It's the same name. They have this anonymous name. Another one in the waiting room. We met with them for a site visit 2 weeks ago, and talk to them about what, just explained our vision more. All right, another person in the waiting room. Talk to them about our vision, and they came up with a with a beginning. Okay, yes, Spencer, I'll make you the host. Good call. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, that's a big relief. So they came up with a proposal, a preliminary proposal of the kinds of services they could provide and what they think it would cost. With an event that's situated only at the Ivy Community Center and the People's Park area around it. So they had put forward an idea budget of 80 to 100,000, and that it would be a turnkey production is what they've said, which means that there would be minimal involvement from the district. We'd be consulting and making sure things are moving forward in a way that is in line with our goals, but that they would take care of it all in terms of contracting, arranging for things, making plans, executing the event. So that's it's a turnkey production. So we're paying for it's all inclusive. We're paying for everything. They would put together a site plan, logistics for the day, book the local artists. We'd provide the list, stage and lighting and sound. Staff would be on site, including security and production staff, some light fencing, any food and beverage, no alcohol. And then they'd set up, the spaces, the lounges, the restrooms. So that's what they came back to us with. And so we wanted to come back to the board to see if this was what the board was thinking. And if we want to move forward, this is the extent of what they've proposed. We don't have, this bulleted list is what we did receive from them. So before we move forward and in planning more with them and asking more of them to submit things to us, we're just seeing if this is in line with the board's vision and budget. And if not, we can revise. And if it is, we can move forward. So can pass it back to the committee. Any other comments?
Thanks for that, Jonathan. Carrie and Catherine and I had the opportunity to meet with the event producer that submitted a proposal on first on the 21st, just to talk a little bit more about our vision. And then on the 28th, we all did a site visit together at the community center and in the adjacent park. And we got to learn a lot about the event producer and sort of how they approach their work, the different kinds of projects they've been involved with. One thing that I was happy to learn is that this event producer is very nationally recognized for the work that they did when the pandemic first started to create a Concert in Your Car series in Ventura County. And so it's great to have, a producer like there's many event producers like that that are nationally recognized on the Central Coast. And they've worked in Ventura County and in San Luis Obispo County as well. And so to me, I'd say it seems like a good fit as far as that goes. I also want to highlight, and I think Jonathan might have started to mention this, that we've had a lot of great outreach meetings over the past number of weeks, speaking with the UCSB Office of Student Life, who's offered to partner with us on this event. In the past, they have created the Sunfest, which is the event that they do. It's been on campus in the past at Stork Tower, and I think on Graduation Lawn at one point as well. And the goal of that event was really to get people food in their stomachs and hydration before people from on campus sort of moved their way out into Isla Vista to, enjoy Deltopia. And so when we were considering organized festival in 2020, a big thing that we identified, a synergy, if you will, is that we could move that same goal, but into Isla Vista, where it will get more natural foot traffic. And that's kind of the goal behind this event, is to provide that alternative that has a lot of natural foot traffic. And so we also had the opportunity to meet with UCSB associated students to talk about the event, but also about the door hangers and the other outreach that we're planning on doing for that weekend. And additionally, the UCSB Vice Chancellor for Administrative Services, Gary McPherson, and had some great conversations there about our collaboration with the Office of Student Life. And in addition to that, we're working on setting up meetings with the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office, the Santa Barbara City College Foundation, and the Second District Supervisor. We shared a little bit when we met with the supervisor a number of weeks ago, but want to go into more detail about sort of what the vision is, and once we have more details there to share. And so that's sort of the update on where we're at. And Jonathan, you also want to talk about the park rental piece of this?
Yes, and no, thanks for filling in on the outreach that we did. And we did submit a park rental just to make sure we're in the pipeline with the IVRPD. And we did get a response that it's being processed. So we're in the final stages of that. If we wanted, if we are moving forward, we would have the park rental. It's being finalized. So I can't say it's guaranteed yet. And but we're moving forward on that. And we submitted it on time, and with a preliminary site plan and a description of the event.
And were you able to conduct a site visit with their staff?
I think Luis is on the maybe
Yes.
he's off it now, but yeah, him and I walked through a little bit, and I talked about what our ideas were.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that.
I'd just like to add that besides all the other partners who've been very enthusiastic about working with us and very grateful that we're taking the lead and doing something that they think is really important to have happen on this day, we really have made a big effort to keep Isla Vista Recreation and Park District in the loop, to include them in our walkthroughs, to get their feedback and ideas. And of course, because we're talking about doing this at the bottom of the loop in Perfect Park, at that level, it will be a shared event.
Thank you for sharing that, Kira. I think that's a really important piece of this. And I'll add to one thing that we received a lot of feedback about in 2020 when we were going through this process for the first time, was the need for this to be a local event. We don't want to unnecessarily attract people from out of town who are coming specifically to come see our event. And the two strategies really that we have in place to try and prevent that are number one, basically no marketing. Any very limited marketing is what I'll say, and that will only happen in the 1 week leading up to the event. And the event producers seem to think that, based on what they know about Deltopia, how it's been in the past, we're going to get so much natural foot traffic, and we'll have different ways to try and draw people in, with water stations, restrooms, with the lounge space where people can just chill out and relax. That we think we'll have a natural constituency there. And so there's not really a need to market as much as we normally would. And in addition to that, the musical talent that the event producer is going to be drawing on are Isla Vista artists. And so we're not talking about, bringing in big names. Maybe one day we'll get to a point where that's the right thing to do. But for now, we really want this to be a showcase of the local arts and culture that we have in Isla Vista that's just so rich. So I'll also hand it over to Carrie or Catherine if you have anything else that you want to add, as we think about the proposal.
Yeah, I think just more broadly, we were discussing a few days ago that because I'm fourth year, our class is really the last class to have experienced an actual Deltopia before. So we really have a chance to begin to rewrite the norms and what we want this weekend to represent for Isla Vista and for our residents. And we really want it to be a celebration of Isla Vista culture and arts and music. And so that's really what we're aiming towards. And that's why we aren't really focusing on marketing. We want it to be supernatural. Where it's located is where people will naturally be walking by. And we're just hoping to provide a really safe place where people who may just be walking around get a chance to grab some water, sit down and listen to some awesome local music. So that's really contributing to the broader goal of making it a really safe and community-minded event.
Thanks for that, Catherine. Couldn't agree more. We're at really, I think, an inflection point in the opportunity to really make some positive cultural change right now. So with that, I'll open it up for questions from the board. I see a hand from Director Deschler.
Yes, hi, thank you. I wanted to ask a question. The last time this had come up, I believe there was an IVCSD solicitation for a request for proposals. And so I'm wondering if there has been official proposal submitted for the board to look at, if there was a vetting process between companies. So that's my first question. And my second question is, I think it's great the outreach that you all three have done to UCSB partners. I think that's awesome. One word concerned me a little bit when you were describing this company is turnkey. And I want to make sure that turnkey doesn't mean that there's not engagement on the part of the IVCSD as well as UCSB and others, that it's not that they're coming in and they're going to run everything, that there's really kind of a process where there's good engagement and input. Because I think that local people know local best. And so I hope that there can be that local input into this this company. I appreciate knowing, Spencer, that they have worked in Ventura and San Luis Obispo, but I don't think otherwise I haven't seen, I don't know who the company is, or if they have, who they are. So I hope that they have submitted something. I hope there is something that the board can look at. So that's all my comments.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the turnkey, but it would be full involvement of us. So we would be designing what the turnkey is, but we wouldn't have to do the actual work, but we would be determining the details of it. So what you see in under event details is the proposal as it is right now. That's what they submitted to us, that they would be able to do that at that price.
And we've let them know that that's not adequate.
So that's why we're getting the board's input. And if we say, okay, this is the right track, this is what we would want, right price, we would then say, hey, you need to have a more fleshed out proposal for us to vote on.
I'll also add too that as from my understanding of how these sorts of events usually work, these companies are not necessarily used to submitting requests for proposals. At least I remember that's what we went through when we were working with another event company in the past, is trying to explain to them, this is our government process, we need a proposal, and we need to have these things fleshed out so that we can establish a contract from there. And so we're working with them on those details. I see a hand from Director Bertrand.
Thank you. Well, I'll echo Director Deschler's comments. I think that this is a very good position that we're in now. We've not gotten this far before, even though we've had good collaboration to plan for an event like this. So I'm really encouraged to see what the committee has accomplished. And importantly, I'm really excited to see the concept here. I think it has all of the elements that we've discussed in the past about creating a safe space, a space that's engaging and that attracts people. And that, like Director Flaherty said, helps rewrite the story of what Deltopia is and what it can be and how it can really be a celebration of community. So that being said, a couple questions. So first, did I hear right that the event producers are associated with the California Beer Festival?
Yeah.
Got it. So when I first heard that, I had a little bit of a red flag, because I'm sure that's a great event, but I know when we're communicating about this, we'll want to steer clear of that just to not create any misperceptions. But like when it was described their other work they've done, like I remember following their work in Ventura County for the Concert in Your Cars. And that was an awesome, innovative solution that created a great atmosphere for local residents. So as we move forward, I would just express some caution there, just so that we don't create any misperceptions. And then I guess my follow-up question is, will there be any alcohol sales associated with this or beer garden?
No.
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 Okay. So completely a dry event. Okay. And then back to just some comments. I really appreciate the focus on local artists, on using and showcasing our local talent. I know that over the past year, there's been an especially active band scene with just lots of new emerging artists in Isla Vista. And I also know that the Recreation and Park District is currently planning for their spring concert series. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration going forward. But the last thing I'll mention is just when we've historically thought about this as a big priority for our district. And when we're looking at the price tag of this, I just always remind myself, and when I speak to others about this, talk about just the importance of investing in safety by providing alternatives. We're not just saying no, we're not just talking about what Isla Vista residents shouldn't do, we're not talking about what's happened in the past. Rather, we are providing something that will be enjoyable, will be high quality, and will be safe. So thanks to all involved.
Thank you for those comments, Director Bertrand. I see a hand from Director Freeman. Go ahead.
I have just a quick question today, since there's no decision to be made anyway. I'm wondering if in the initial communication with the California Beer Fest or in any documentation they might have provided to us, they or we in the request had talked about the number of people that would be expected at the event. Like, do they, as they make their plan, are they designing it around a number of people? Were we prepping them for a number of people? Is everyone involved just, because it might be very unpredictable, and so we've just all just like thinking about it more in terms of a location. I'm just curious what if or what thought has gone into that.
Yeah, they are expecting, because we did we walked around and worked with them to see what the setup would be, and they think it would be 1,500 people capacity. So not necessarily 1,500 people in attendance throughout the 6 hours, but at any one time you could have 1,500 people.
And I'll also add, one of the questions that they asked us is, what does a success look like to you in terms of attendance? And where I think Catherine and Carrie and I were thinking was a bit lower than what they might have been thinking, and just to help them understand a little bit more the goal of how this is meant to be an alternative event to what's already going on there. So I think if we had 5 people show up, it'd be a success, honestly. 5 people that,
Disagree.
Not for 100,000.
Yeah, no,
I disagree as well.
But we do also want to make sure that anybody who's there is served, and there's plenty of water and there's plenty of space, and so that's all part of this calculation, which is difficult because you really don't know how many people are going to show up, but you want to make sure that you're prepared for the potential maximum at that potential maximum point in time.
any other questions from the board? Director Daschler.
I have a question. I've never planned anything like this, and I'm glad to say I'm not going to, but I'm just curious as to, is this doable? I mean, is this enough time to put on a successful event, doing the site plans, ordering, organizing, bringing people in? I mean, are we in the time, the ballpark to have a successful event?
We think we are. You may not know that I was the cultural arts coordinator for Isla Vista in the 1970s. And so I'm very glad I'm not going to be crawling around and plugging in amps. But one of the things that, makes our potential vendors' eyes light up is the fact that they don't have to turn a profit and they don't have to do a lot of advertising. And so, those are kind of some of the long lead time things. And a lot of, The rest of the stuff is just logistical nuts and bolts, and they have vendors that they work with. They have their own staff. They know how to set up areas, stages, equipment. So it's not much time, but really when you get right down to it, it's a pretty simple event. We're talking about one food vendor and water. So, I think we feel confident that, if we keep at it and hammer out the details and get going, that we can pull it off.
Thanks for sharing that, Carrie. Yeah, I too feel very confident. And just hearing from the event producer, they even sounded like, oh, we could do this with even less time, which I was like, no, well, we gotta get started now.
We got to keep at it for sure.
But I did feel confident as far as that goes. Any other questions from board members? Well, seeing none, I will open up the public comment. We'll hear from the public. If you have a comment on this item, you can hit the raise hand button, or you can put something in the chat and we will call on you. Not seeing anyone in the public or anyone in the chat. I'll bring it back to the board. Is there any further discussion on this?
What would be the expectation of bringing back a contract for board approval in terms of timing?
Next time.
And I think we mentioned this in the report too, that there's the possibility that we do have a special meeting sometime in February to consider this. In the interest of moving things along and moving things forward. Any other discussion or comments from the board? All right, well, seeing none then, I think this is just a report to receive and file, and we'll be looking forward to sharing a more fleshed out proposal once that's completed. And want to thank Carrie and Catherine and Jonathan for all your hard work on bringing this to where it is now. And I'm very excited to envision it. When we were walking around the community center and around People's Park, envisioning what could be, it was really bringing me a lot of joy. And Catherine put it so well earlier about how this is really the moment that we need to seize to build cultural change, because we've had, 2 years of either no Deltopia or very small Deltopia, and this is the point where we can really take advantage of the moment to create something better. So, really excited with the direction we're heading. And with that, we will move to the next item on our agenda, which is Isla Vista Compost Collective Annual Report.
Great, thank you. Well, this is the kickoff for our budget process, and we're starting off with the Isla Vista Compost Collective, which is one of our 2-year-old program at this point, which we almost to the, not to the meeting, but almost exactly 2 years ago, we took on the Isla Vista Compost Collective. Carly is here with us today. She's prepared all the reports and presentations and information to report to you all on today. And so I'm gonna turn it over to her in a second, just to frame, what the goals for the presentation is, it is an update for the board to be more informed on how the last 7 months have gone with the IV Compost Collective, since Carly has been the new hired manager of it, and to get your feedback on the operations, get your feedback on, so Carly has been working on some future goals for the program and how it can change. No decisions today either, and the way it's usually has worked is, we'll do the annual report, we'll talk about the future and the present and the past. If the the board can give direction on, do we like this do we like where the program's going? Do we need any augmentation? Do we want to expand, stay the same? Just general feedback on where we're thinking. Then we have both our retreat, which is one avenue where we will make plans for the future and talk about where our resources want to go. And we'll have our budget committee or finance committee start talking in depth about about these ideas and how we operationalize them in the budget. But after the board has said, yeah, we want this. So just an example from last year to give you. I don't want to take up too much of Carly's time, but it's our first one, so I want to make sure we're on a good track. But how we did this last year, for example, was we had the Isle of Vista Beautiful annual report, and the board expressed the desire to have additional workers in the program and to support the idea of 20 hours instead of 10 hours for the positions. And so then we explored that directly more in the budget committee, and we talked about it a little bit in our goal setting in the retreat. And then it reappeared in the budget later on in the spring. So that's kind of the idea of what we're doing here is looking at the past and planning for the future, and getting the board's position on where this should go before we actually make more plans. So Carly has been an amazing manager for the program, and I want to turn it over to her to talk about all the great things she's been doing. And Carly, the screen share is changed if you want to go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jonathan. And hi, everyone. So good to see you all again. I wanted to start by just letting everyone from our team introduce themselves really fast who's here right now.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Chloe. I am the student director of IV Compost Collective.
Hi, everybody. My name's Quincy, and I'm one of the dirt riders with the Compost Collective.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fiona, and I'm also one of the dirt riders at the Compost Collective.
Hi, my name is Eiley, and I'm the marketing manager at the Compost Collective.
Awesome. And now I'll share my screen. All right, let's get started. So I wanted to start by just thanking you all so much for allowing us the time here today.
Carly, we lost your audio. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm kind of bad at screen sharing. All right, I'll try again.
We lost you again, Carly, for some reason. There you go.
All right, let's get started. So I wanted to start by just thanking you all so much for allowing us the time here today to share some of the details of our previous year and what we have planned for the upcoming year. So again, thank you all so much for having us. I want to start by introducing our team. I'm Carly, the program manager, and then we have Chloe, our student director, Eiley, our marketing manager, and then our 6 dirt riders. And to discuss our impact thus far, together we have kept a total of 50,000 pounds of food scraps out of the landfill since our establishment in 2017, preventing 12.44 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent greenhouse gas emissions from entering the atmosphere. Food and other organic waste rots in our landfills, producing heat-trapping, climate-harming methane gas. Our overall successes demonstrate that the community composting can and should play a central role in complying with SB 1383 and achieving statewide climate goals into the future. In addition to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, composting also saves money and the environment by providing a chemical-free fertilizer that restores natural soil health. Thank you all for making all of this possible, and we hope this report will share our optimism for 2022. So just for a small recap, looking back at last year around this time, we were serving 539 residents across 96 households. We were working on purchasing an electric bike, which would help us expand the number of houses we're serving through our food scrap pickup service. For an update of where we are now in winter 2022, we're serving 580 residents across 132 households. We have access to 4 compost piles. We're engaging with over 1,500 followers on Instagram. We're overseeing the entire composting process at St. Michael's. We were recently awarded a $3,000 grant from the Fund for Santa Barbara Youth Making Change for the construction of a new compost pile at St. Mike's and supplemental dirt rider wages. We're currently coordinating a Food on Wheels event for March 12th and 13th. And we're also planning for a double topic workshop series, which I'll talk a little more about later. So due to the successful implementation of our electric bike, IVCC has used significantly less hours than budgeted for originally. Therefore, we are able to add 30 additional houses in this winter without having to go over our budgeted weekly hours. This electric bike has reduced the manual labor required by dirt riders, which has provided them more satisfaction and fulfillment in their roles. Due to our increased efficiency, IVCC broke our personal record for the amount of food scraps collected in one quarter this last fall. Since spring 2021, IVCC has collected 400% more food scraps from the community compared to our previous year. Another one of our largest accomplishments was the land use agreement that we formed with St. Michael's University Church. This was a crucial accomplishment for IVCC as we now have a reliable, long-term, and free location to carry out all of our current and future operations. We constructed a new 3-tiered compost pile for less than $1,000 at St. Michael's. St. Michael's also supplied us with our own storage shed for electric bike and other supplies. We signed our land use agreement, allowing us to access the site's water and garbage services for only $1 per year. This past spring, we collected 432 pounds of non-perishable food items during our Food on Wheels event. We redistributed the food to the Isla Vista community by collaborating with the Isla Vista Food Co-op, Food Not Bombs, and Isla Vista Community Fridge. Our next Food on Wheels event, again, will be March 13th and 14th. IVCC launched a pilot program in fall 2021 to address the excessive amounts of molded and littered pumpkins that fill the streets of Isla Vista after Halloween. In one day, we were able to collect 340 pounds of pumpkins, which we composted at St. Michael's University Church. Due to the success of this event, we plan on implementing it into a yearly event and improving our results by promoting it well before Halloween and increasing the amount of days we are collecting pumpkins. Here's some pictures of our piles at St. Michael's right now. The middle top photo is what our pile looked like freshly after construction. And then the one right below it is the piles just this last week. They're not smelling at all. They're super clean and well kept, which means we're doing our job right. The bottom left corner is the sign I made for people who are dropping off their own food scraps so they can scan the code and enter their weight into our system. And then the top right photo is Fiona at the recent event St. Michael's threw for us, dedicating the mural that a local artist painted for us on our bike shed. And these are the photos of our bike shed and the mural, which depicts a bunch of different scenes through history of different environmental movements and the natural history of Isla Vista. And then they drew a little worm dedicated to us. And there you can see our electric bike in our shed. So again, our major accomplishments this year was our relationship with St. Mike's, our restructuring to add my position, and our expansion to more houses. Our challenges this year were the delay of access to the compost pile at the Estero Park, the pandemic, and the time deficit. I will get into the time deficit more and the solutions I've thought of to solve this problem, but the Estero compost pile, we were able to solve that issue by forming the relationship with St. Michael's. So we've gotten back on track with our goals that were associated with the Estero compost pile. So this is where we thought we'd be right now last year at this time. We thought the only main difference is we thought we'd have the Estero compost pile and everything that entailed. But since we have the St. Michael's pile now, we've been able to accomplish most of the goals that we set last year. And this is us now, basically the same thing, but with the St. Michael's Church in replacement of the Estero Park compost pile. So we have huge goals for 2022 planned, and I'm super excited to share it all with you. So food insecurity continues to be a pressing issue in our community that requires radical solutions. Within the CSD's jurisdiction, the median household income is $29,000, well below the poverty line. The grocery stores within our borders are notoriously unaffordable for the average resident. Beyond just climate change, the CSD has an urgent need to promote environmental justice within our community, which could start with the distribution of food. Promoting environmental justice would ensure a higher quality of life for the predominantly low-income populations of Isla Vista. It would ensure food security for the Isla Vista residents without fully having to rely on the global food systems that will be inevitably impacted by climate change due to their unsustainable practices. IVCC wants to expand our reach by promoting food sovereignty by creating a small-scale closed-loop food system in Isla Vista through community gardens. A closed-loop food system is the most sustainable method of consuming and producing food on a community level because it eliminates the need for transportation like imports and exports, while also restoring our local ecosystems in a way that integrates the people that it provides for. By collecting food scraps and turning them into compost, IVCC already has its hands in a portion of the closed loop system. We hope to extend our reach to other parts of the system in order to close the loop by integrating gardening and food distribution into our mission. We plan to create and collaborate with local gardens to grow food and to distribute that food in an equitable manner to our community. This plan will require extensive training and education to avoid error, as well as an extensive amount of community support. So what is food sovereignty? Food sovereignty is the right of peoples to enjoy healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agricultural systems. Food sovereignty has 7 pillars that align with our 2022 goals. It focuses on food for people, builds knowledge and skills, works with nature, values food providers, localizes the food system, puts control locally, and finally, food is sacred. IVCC plans to focus on food for people by maintaining an accessible and culturally appropriate food variation of produce grown in our gardens. The first step to achieve this mission is to use the community center as our first community garden hub. Building knowledge and skills through community volunteer days and workshops will be crucial for a successful program. We plan on holding a series of workshops on 2 different topics: the tangible knowledge on composting and gardening, and intangible knowledge on the importance of these efforts in relation to food sovereignty. Through community volunteer days, we'll be providing community members with the opportunity to work with nature. In addition to the satisfaction that comes from the reward of food, working with nature has countless psychological benefits. By providing food in return for community involvement, we are valuing the providers of our food by creating an equitable system of participation and distribution. Our efforts would contribute to the localization of our foodways, which would reduce emissions associated with transportation, as well as reduce the inappropriate dumping of food aid and dependency on remote and unaccountable corporations. Food is sacred, and living with food insecurity can impact all aspects of one's life. Our mission is to deliver access to nutritious food to address a pressing need in our community. So to go over our concrete goals one more time, we're hoping to get a full-time program management position, 2 additional dirt riders, a garden manager, a 3rd compost pile at St. Michael's, a garden and compost pile at the community center, 80 to 100 additional houses served through our pickup service, our workshop series, community volunteer days, and food distribution. Although we believe that achieving these goals listed above are possible under our current budget, we also argue that we could make a much greater contribution by expanding our team. The promotion of our program manager, myself, to full-time, a garden manager, and 2 additional dirt riders would allow us to maintain 3 to 4 more compost piles, serve 100 to 120 additional houses serviced through our pickup program, expand our community engagement through extensive workshops and community volunteer days, and guarantee high-quality compost and productive yields. The additional dirt riders would allow us to serve more houses through our pickup service while assisting with community volunteer days and workshops. The garden manager would bring a high level of experience in composting and gardening to our team. Since our current program manager, myself, would have to go through extensive training to run a high-yielding garden, the addition of a garden manager with prior experience and knowledge would save us massive amounts of time and money. It would also allow the program manager, myself, more time to focus on streamlining and expanding our service to make a positive impact on the community of IV in as many ways as possible. So here you can see the plans I have drawn up for the community center garden. The photo on the left is kind of a spatial awareness picture up to where the garden would be in the compost pile. And then the picture on the right is a more detailed drawing. It would definitely be centered around the walking paths, which are those green thick lines, because I want it to be a place for community gathering rather than just growing food. And then the pictures on the bottom, the circular photos, are where I've gotten my inspiration from and what I think the compost piles would look great as, a little more organized than our piles at St. Mike's. So here is our goals for 2023 lined up. It is a repeat of what I just listed to you all, but again, we are hoping to get a 50% increase in the amount of pounds of food scraps we collect, 80 to 100 additional houses served through our pickup service, and most importantly, a small scale, complete closed loop food system in Isla Vista through gardening and food distribution. All right.
Thank you all so much for the time, and I will open the floor up to questions or any ideas you all may have.
Thank you so much, Carly, for the presentation. And it's incredibly thorough, and it is such an amazing testament to this program to see all the expansion that's happened over the last year. And I know we're all very proud of this as a really one of our sort of homegrown services in Isla Vista. I certainly hope to see more government agencies across Santa Barbara County and the world offer services like this. And just want to thank you for all the work that you've done on this. It's so exciting to see the impact that's being made. So with that, I'll open it up for questions from the board. I see a hand from Director Bertrand.
Yes, thank you. Well, Carly, I have to say this program just continues to surpass expectations. I think back to the first hearing when the Compost Collective presented to our board, and at that time it was strictly a student organization. It was receiving some support from associated students, but its future was uncertain. And at that time, we were so impressed that we thought, yeah, let's see how we can partner. But to see how far you all have come since then is just equally as impressive and inspiring. You're reaching so many folks. In addition to the service you're providing, I think you're also doing a lot of education in our community, and your team members are great ambassadors for our district. And as a local government, I think we're really called to stay attuned to the needs of the community, and through a program like this, we're directly answering the requests for the community for these services. So I'm really impressed. I look forward to seeing how we can make some of your big goals reality in this next fiscal year and the years to come. But congratulations on all the success. It's really inspiring.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. Any other questions or comments from board members? Director Topliff.
Also, great admiration for the work that you're doing. It seems just lovely. And when I looked at your PowerPoint before the meeting, I had to text out to some of my old friends who served on the Isla Vista Community Council back in the day to say, hey, guess what IVCC stands for these days? So it's an interesting twist on the acronym. I was a little surprised about the community garden adjacent to the community center, and I'm wondering when that will be before us, and we'll talk about that in more detail. I'm having a little trouble understanding it spatially. And I just am interested in having a greater conversation about that.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure Jonathan can answer that more thoroughly, but these are just very initial plans, and I can draw up more pictures to show the spatial and like do measurements and everything like that when we develop a more concrete plan. But just to put it out there, like obviously the community center would be the best place for us to do this because, you know, it's ours and it's something that we all share. It's in the middle of IV. It's a great location. But like if for some reason that like couldn't work out for any reason, then we always have the backup of like St. Michael's Church where we can build more gardens and stuff like that. But the main point is kind of that we just want to reach our hands deeper into gardening and food distribution.
And we'll work on getting that as a, today's, like Carly said, first pitch of the idea, see how people are at, where people are at, and then we can bring it back for more detail and maybe a site visit, with a board member and me and Carly, we can get out there and talk about it. So.
Thanks for the question, Carrie. Other questions or comments from board members? Director Flaherty.
Hi, yes. I just want to quickly say our house loves our compost bin that we have and through you all, and I'm super excited about the growth of this program. And the idea of a community garden as well, and a closed loop system is super awesome, and I'm really excited to see how that could work out in the future. But I'm really excited to support this program, and thank you for such a detailed presentation as well. Looking through the slides, there's just so much information there, and it's super clear and easy to understand. And so I really appreciate that transparency as well. I think it's really important. But yeah, I'm a big fan of your program.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, we couldn't do it without all of your support. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Director Flaherty. Any other questions or comments from board members? Well, I'll ask a question because I'm really curious to know exactly the status of the households. It's been honestly amazing to see the growth in the number of households and the number of individuals served with the program. And I know that I think it was either last year or at some point in the last year or so, we had been experiencing like a wait list for the program. Is that still something that's ongoing, or has that wait list been exhausted now and they all have service?
Yeah, we still actually have a pretty large wait list right now. I will have to check on the exact number, but I think it's like almost at 100 people. And we're serving around 132 houses right now. So the thing I forgot to bring up in the report is that like at our current like business as usual thing I was talking about, I think it'd be very hard to expand the number of houses we're serving as we are right now, even if we had more compost piles, because our dirt riders are usually finishing their shifts in the amount of budgeted hours we have. So we were able to add 32 more houses with the addition of the electric bike, but now it kind of seems like we're at sort of a cap. So that's kind of where I am at with like the whole growth and additional dirt riders thing. I hope that answers your question a bit.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful to hear. And do you have any idea of when the person who's at the top of the wait list, like they signed up the longest to go? Did they sign up a year ago, 2 years ago, a couple of weeks ago? Like how old is the wait list, I guess, is what I'm curious to hear.
Chloe, are you there to answer that? Chloe is the one who takes care of the wait list, so I'll have her answer that question.
Yeah, so the longest someone is currently waiting has probably been about 5 months max. We do have a very large active wait list, especially whenever we advertise it on our social media. We get an influx of amount of people who want to participate and use our service.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really good to know. I know in thinking about it, I've had my moments where I've been like, I want to sign up for the program, but I also don't want to cut in line in front of someone else that maybe could produce more food scraps than I did and take up that. So, but that is really cool to hear, because that means that, even though 5 months may seem like a long time, we're still able to make sure that we serve households within the sometimes it's only a year that you're living together with a group of people in Isla Vista, and so that's good to hear that the service has that 5-month refresh rate, and I'm glad to hear that. I see a hand from Director Freeman. Go ahead.
So one question that I had that I realized during that last interaction relating to the wait list is actually potentially related, is of the households that are currently being served, maybe the preposition there is wrong, but looking at the households that are currently being served, are they spread around Isla Vista, or do you have clusters in various locations? Like, I'm curious to know what the geography of it is, without, of course, asking for a map, because I don't want to, have the personal information and things. And so I'm just curious, at a high level of scale, are we talking about all over IV or?
Yeah, it's truly, I've looked at mini maps before because I use this website to basically route or create the best routes for the dirt riders according to which area the houses are in. But yeah, we're spread all across Isla Vista. It's probably a little more concentrated, like DP and kind of the 6-8 blocks, but it's all around the whole Isla Vista.
So the way in which then is kind of in my mind related to the discussion relating of the waiting list is, and I realize this might cause other problems if it were to actually be done. So I'm not suggesting. I'm just kind of curious about it. If households from the wait list that were next to or near existing serviced households were taken up, would it cost less to add those than to add new random ones from the list? Or is there, from the way that, because you said it was kind of bottlenecked on the dirt riders, I'm wondering if you have time savings if you go and you serve 2 or 3 houses that are all right next to each other.
Totally. Yeah, that's a good point. And it definitely would reduce the time a bit. But probably the thing for each house, the dirt rider probably spends the most time sorting through their bucket. So when they take the bucket back to the compost pile, they have to basically take kind of it out piece by piece, because there's always a lot of produce stickers and trash and whatnot. So and then they have to write that all down, because we keep track, and then we text the houses each week what their mistakes were. So that's probably what takes the longest. And then they also have to clean each bucket and lid. So it's kind of we definitely have some wiggle room, but it gets a little tight with combined with the other operations we have to do.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for the informative answers.
Yeah, thank you for that, Carly. That's a really good insight that I didn't know, I guess, about how the process is. I think when our board thinks about it, and also when you hear the word dirt rider, you think about the collection aspect, and obviously it's in the name, but there is that really important piece of making sure that you have quality product and that it's up to the standards. So that makes a lot of sense. I had another question too about sort of the staffing model. So can you describe what that's like? It seems like there's, how many dirt riders are there and how many hours a week do they work?
So right now there's 6 dirt riders, a marketing manager, and an operations manager. And budgeted last year, we had, I think, is 5.19 hours each person out of all those positions. And then my position's 20 hours. And so the dirt riders spend 4 hours a week on their regular shifts, which is picking up the buckets, sorting them, cleaning them, and then doing a little bit of maintenance on the compost piles. And then their other hour they spend at our team meeting every week, doing random workshop things or events or whatever we have kind of planned, pile maintenance, stuff like that.
Got it. And as far as the dirt rider shifts go, are those usually staggered on different days of the week, or are they working shifts together? How does that work?
They all work shifts separately because they all need to use the bike. So, and we only have one bike. So their shifts go from Monday through Friday, honestly, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. There's random staggered shifts throughout the whole thing. And they each have, some people do their shift in one go, but most people do their shifts in 2 different shifts. So 1 2-hour shift Monday, 1 2-hour shift Wednesday, for example.
Got it. That's good to hear. Thank you for that. Any other questions from the board? We'll open it up, or I see a hand from Director Bertrand. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, just one question I just thought of is I'm curious about interactions between the dirt riders and community members. Like, do people ever like ask your folks what they're doing when they're going around? Just because I know I've seen the dirt riders out, and it's a sight to see if you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of heads turn with our electric bike, but Fiona and Quincy, I'm sure they have. Quincy, do you have any stories so far of your interactions with people? I think a lot of times people will be like lounging out in their front yards when you go pick up the buckets, and so you'll talk to them. Quincy, do you have a lot of interaction with the community?
I do have interactions with the community, and yeah, definitely houses that I pick up from, and also when I'm at the compost piles and just doing my sorting and inputting the data, there's a lot of people that will come up and ask me about it, or even community members that are coming and dumping off their own compost pile, which is always really good to see as well.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Well, I think now's a good time for me to open up public comment. Are there any comments from members of the public on this item? I see a hand from Mark. We'll start with you.
Everyone, so I have a collection of comments and questions, directed both for the IVCSD board and also to the manager of the Compost Collective. So take that as such another kind of broad. Some of my comments is there was a brief mention of SB 1383, which is the 2016 bill turned law that went into effect as of January 1st this year, that requires all households in the state of California to be composting food waste. And I would really, just as a member of the public, suggest that the IVCSD look into the way that's going to be implemented within something like Santa Barbara County as a whole. I know that some municipalities in California are increasing the rate which they charge people for trash delivery services in exchange for the added burden of dealing with the compost. And I think if there was something like that in Isla Vista, for an example, then you could actually see the Isla Vista Compost Collective scaled up to a lot more than just, I think it was 500 households, or 500 people, 138 households. I think it can be scaled up radically more. And I think this is one of the few things I do hope to see with the Ivy Compost Collective, is it eventually getting to every house in Ivy, or eventually getting to that model. And I think that was another thing I as a member of the public would love to see in a future presentation of what would it, what are all the various steps that it would take to get this program bigger and wider. And yeah, what are the various I guess, like, where does it what is the roadblock that's in the way each time? Is it right now dirt riders, and then next time it'll be compost piles, and the fourth time it'll be maybe the whole model as such? Or and so I would just love to understand that as a member of the public as well. And then the other thing I would love to hear too is, I think in a previous Isla Vista Compost Collective report, there was a lot of talk about the learning element, which I think Director Bertrand briefly mentioned at the end. And that's what I always loved about the Isla Vista Compost Collective, is that people would throw away like trash in their compost piles, not just like food waste. And then, then people would learn that you're not supposed to do that. And then people would go away. They may graduate from UCSB and go on to their next community, but they now understand how compost works. And I was wondering if we could hear more about, is there higher levels of trash at the beginning of service than now 5 months in, or 7 months in, or is there way less trash from an individual household because they've learned not to put, actual, plastic within a compost pile. And then my last kind of statement, I think, is more for the CSD is, I know I've said this before, there's an empty plot of land. It's usually just overgrown weeds at the corner of Camino Pescadero and Trigo. It is owned by just a lady who I think she lives in San Diego. And from my understanding, from someone who knows her, she has no intention of building on the property. And so and I think she's had unfortunate experiences with less credible groups before wanting to do something. But I think if the IVCSD, credibly came to her and asked if we could use that property to have another community garden or another compost pile, I don't know. Maybe I'm hoping too much here, but I hope that she would really be receptive to that, because right now her friend who's the landlord, Greg, who lives next door, just goes and cuts down 8-foot tall weeds once or twice a year that pose a fire hazard to his property, and that's all that land does is create these weeds. And to me, it could be actually a much more productive use of land for the community, and help the Compost Collective in the process, and just be down the street from the St. George, the St. Michael's compost pile. Anyways, those are all my comments. I appreciate being heard.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that sounds like an amazing idea. I'll try to remember to cover everything you just mentioned, but just the first thing that comes to mind, the SB 1383, I definitely am not anywhere near an expert on it, but just so far what I know is that I've reached out to the county before because I was wondering if we could basically be like included in that count in like achieving that goal, but for like, which I thought they'd be like super excited about, but for some reason, like they weren't interested in that. And then another reason I was reaching out was to see if they have like funding, let's say from the state or something, to implement this new law, but they don't also. So just so far to me, it just seems like the county isn't really interested in using us to accomplish the goals under SB 1383. I'm sure many of you probably know more than me about that so far, but that's all I have on that so far. Other questions, the compost pile versus dirt rider deficit. So yeah, that is a good question. Like every time we add more dirt riders, we need more compost piles. But right now we have the funding to build another compost pile at St. Mike's, and then possibly an additional one at the community center in the future. So that would hold us off for a while. And then if we had the garden manager, our composting process would be a lot quicker. So we wouldn't need as many piles because there'd be someone constantly working on it and tending to it, which would help it decompose faster.
Thank you for that, Carly. And thank you for your comments, Mark. Next for public comment, we have Ash. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello. Thanks so much for the Compost Collective for all your hard work and progress in the recent years. Composting is an amazing way to connect our community members with, a full understanding of the food cycle, how to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, save space in landfill, and building up our local soil. So I'm really proud of you all. I want to second Mark's hope for, one day expanding to every household. But I know you're working really hard within the resources you have. And also that idea of gardening on open spaces is a really good idea. There's one across from Super Kukas also. But I think going forward with that, speaking as an individual here, going forward with that idea around the community center is really smart. I remember walking around that area with Joan years ago, and she was talking about how that could possibly be a community garden. So yeah, I think that's really cool. And I, again, speaking as an individual, but I have a good feeling you'll have lots of community support from like Edible Campus program, probably Parks and Rec, probably Vista and other, people that want to volunteer. Right now, it has a bunch of edible stuff growing there, like mallow and fillery, and dandelion and stuff. There's also a lot of gophers. So I saw that your circle design had like onions and garlic around the outside. That's really smart. And maybe just letting there still be some of those edible weeds for the gophers to have, so that you can have, understand that you have to live with them, because I think usually killing them, they just come back and it's cruel. So, but yeah, just one challenge to prepare for. Again, yeah, I think the circle design is really awesome. I would think about access to Ivy Clinic. Right now, to get to Ivy Clinic, like there's a few ways to get there, but I think it could be improved, like the pathway there. So maybe if this garden project moves forward, thinking about like a way through the center of it that is a convenient way to access the clinic. Thanks, Chuck.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all those helpful comments and your support.
Thank you for your comments, Ash.
Just really quick on the path to the clinic, I can say that there's that the county is working on an ADA path of travel into the clinic right now. That we asked them to divert from the area where the garden might be. So something they are working on though, a sidewalk to clinic path of travel.
Thank you for sharing, Jonathan. Are there any other comments from members of the public? You can hit the raise hand button or put something in the chat. All right, well, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. We'll start with Jay and then go to Ethan.
So I was inspired to talk about this a little bit because of Mark's comment, but this is also something that I've realized is the board might be interested in, and some of you have heard me talk about this before, but actually many of you have not. So this is me working off of also, I will say, some potentially out of date information, but because in 2017, I spent a bunch of time talking to the county about commercial composting in the area. And before that, I had talked to the city of Santa Barbara and this notion of charging more for trash in order to subsidize the rates for composting is something that they had been doing for a while to great success. And they recommended other communities do it. And they were very, very happy with it. And when I talked to the county about it, and I appreciate, and this is where it's like, the existence of SB 1383 might mean that they have to do different calculus on this. And it might be that they will actually almost be forced into some kind of different kind of rate structure or something. But they had expressed not merely a distaste for the subsidization process, but they had actually described it as almost a philosophical issue, that they felt that, and I say that like there aren't that many people who are actually involved in decision making at solid waste at the counties. So it's and this wasn't a board decision. So I'm talking about the small number of staff that I was dealing with that were in charge of these decisions. They felt that charging that the fees should be related to the service that was provided to the party receiving the service. Now, I want to be clear, by the way, this is me forwarding information from them. I was very excited by the subsidization process. I think there's a lot of benefits to it. I think if you're trying to move a community in a certain direction, the idea might be that you want to penalize trash and attempt to get people towards composting. And one of the big complexities is that composting when you're first starting out is much more expensive because you have a small number of routes and you don't have much economy of scale. And so you need to figure out how to actually like start diverting enough of the collection towards composting initially, and this rate structuring can work for that. But the county felt that it was unfair to the people who were not currently doing the composting in order to be paying for the compost. Now, SB 1383 might change some of the calculus there, so maybe we have an opportunity to try to push on that or make something happen there. But it was this weird attitude about it. And I think they even said, we're at the county, we're just much more conservative than the city of Santa Barbara. This is not the kind of thing that we want to look into. And another thing I want to point out is that they actually also cited that the trash service fees in the trash service district that Isla Vista is in are incredibly cheap, and that they consider them to be very cheap. Now, they also, though, when I started really digging into that, haven't done a rate study in a very long time. And I probably still have not done a rate study, honestly. And that without the rate study, it actually wasn't even clear because the boundaries had kept changing. It could be that actually everyone's being overcharged for trash, but also could have been that everyone was being undercharged for trash service. And that in fact, our entire district was being subsidized by other districts. And these are, when I say districts, these are not the supervisorial districts or any other district you're used to hearing. There's like a special map for all the trash collection and everything that the county manages with Marburg. But there's some details to throw out there of my experiences dealing with the county and attempting to talk to them about rate structuring with relation to composting and trash. And it's one of the reasons why I had been and continue to be very excited about the idea of trying to take solid waste collection as a service from the county and bring it to the Isla Vista Community Services District with a potential LAFCO application in the future. Because I believe that we have locally maybe less conservative views on what we want to see out of trash collection, composting, and things like that. And that with the decision-making power more locally with respect to all of that, we might be able to get what we want. In addition to, it's actually the way that service isn't actually performed by the county. It is merely a monopoly that the government holds, that they then franchise to providers such as Marburg, and then they negotiate contracts. It actually ends up being a revenue opportunity as well. So those are my thoughts. And
Thank you for sharing, Director Friedman. I definitely think that the process with the new legislation is something we should all learn more about, for how there can be additional opportunities for us to increase composting in the community and see if there are areas for partnership. I know even just when we were first getting the program off the ground, I think some of the county staff from Resource Recovery were helpful and had good advice and encouragement to share. So I know also too that waste management is something that comes to the Board of Supervisors from time to time, and I think Ethan shared that it recently came before them. So I think we should all pay attention to that and see if there are areas where we can help grow the program through that way. I see a hand from Director Bertrand and then Director Topliff.
Yes, thank you. All I wanted to say is just some information regarding the Senate bill, which is that Santa Barbara County already exceeds its requirements. Over the past few years, the $150 million materials recovery facility, MRF abbreviation, was built. And that facility is focused on recovering organic waste. And we already divert more than the 75% requirement. However, there's still an important role that the IV Compost Collective plays, because they are helping us recycle that material locally, where we're not loading that up onto big carbon intensive trucks and trucking it across the county. We're doing that all locally here in Isla Vista. So the benefit, I think, has changed slightly since when this program was first rolled out, and perhaps our region didn't have the infrastructure to divert as much organic material. But just so everyone knows, Santa Barbara County currently exceeds the requirements of that new legislation.
Thank you for sharing, Director Bertrand. Director Topliff.
Very nice to hear, Ethan. And I think certainly in Santa Barbara, we want to exceed our minimum requirements. I would certainly be interested in approaching the county again, and maybe Jay would like to do that too, given his history with this issue, and see if we can't get a better partnership with them.
I think that's agreeance. I think that's a good idea for you to talk, and maybe you can talk with Jonathan and Carly offline about how best to do that. I'll wrap up my thoughts by just saying I'm so proud of the work that all of our compost staff have done. I know a number of you have been with the program for many years at this point, and now Carly, with your leadership on the program, I really feel that we're moving in an incredibly positive direction. I think about visiting a close friend of mine who lived in another state a couple of years ago, and we were just hanging out, at his house, sitting on the couch, having a beer. Went to throw away my can and asked him where the recycling was, and he said, "There's no recycling in this state." And I think that really speaks to the fact that what we have the opportunity to do here is not just divert the material as you're doing, but you're helping educate the community and build habits that will hopefully last a lifetime, no matter where people go and live their lives at. They're learning this skill for getting in the habit of recycling their food waste, and for even just the act of separating their organic waste from other things that they're throwing away that just go straight into the landfill. I think is really incredible. And I really want to thank St. Michael's Church as well. We've had an incredible partnership with them, and it's just so inspiring and heartwarming to see how much they have taken to the program and embraced it with open arms, and really supported it. I got to go see the mural a couple of days ago, and it really is truly a work of art, and can't thank them enough for stepping up and really and saying yes, we will do this. We'll do this with you. I used to be a neighbor of that property. I'm not anymore, and I'm sad about that, because it's always a great, nice view out your window to see the piles and the beautiful trees that they have on their property. And I'm just very thankful for that partnership, and definitely will be, I think, a lot for us as a board to think about in terms of what direction we want to move. I know that we're going to continue these discussions in our budget process, and Carly, you were very well positioned to make that strong argument for why the program deserves more support. And you already have definitely winning a gold star in terms of a staff presentation. So, and presenting the information in a very accessible way. So I really thank you for that. And I thank the entire staff for going out there every day. I know the Dirt Riders were out there, during the pandemic, and in many ways we're essential workers, because this sort of work of creating a more sustainable environment is essential. And I thank you for what you do, and I'm very proud of the direction we're moving.
Thank you so much. That all means a lot.
So with that, if there are no other comments from the board, or sorry, was that a hand, Director Aguilar? Okay. We are going to close out this item, and we will move to, I think let's move to reports first, and then we'll do closed session after that for the public's benefit. So first, any reports from members of the board? Director Freeman.
So at the last LAFCO meeting, Steve Levig, so the one notable thing that I think should be reported to the board about the last LAFCO meeting is that at the last LAFCO meeting, Steve Levignino, the 5th District Supervisor, announced that he was stepping down from LAFCO and would be replaced by Bob Nelson, the 4th District Supervisor. In the past, Steve Levignino and Das Williams, who've worked together on many projects, including having spent a lot of time working together on all of the cannabis taxation things, et cetera. The strong relationship between the two of them has meant that when issues about Isla Vista come before the board, Steve tends to step out of the meeting, causing the alternate member, Das Williams, to become a voting member and allow Das, who cares deeply about Isla Vista, to vote on issues related to Isla Vista. I don't know whether Bob will do the same thing. I'm not certain that he won't, but I could see there being, if nothing else, due to the politics of the supervisor board, maybe a little less likely for that to happen. In my past discussions with Bob, I have not felt that he has any particular animosity or anything towards Isla Vista, and I think that he can be worked with on issues. But I just wanted to bring up this change of the structure on the Local Agency Information Commission in case other people on the Office of Community Services Board that affects any of their thoughts how we interact with OFCO.
Thank you for sharing that update, Director Freeman. Director Bertrand.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to share with the group that since our last meeting, I attended the Jeffries Jazz Coffee House at the community center, and it was such a fantastic event. It was great to see that program back after hiatus during the pandemic, and really just amazing to see people having fun at that space. And it was kind of inspiring for just giving an idea of what's to come, and just having that be a hub of the community and a hub of nightlife once again. So shout out to Jeffries Jazz Cafe, everyone who puts that on, as well as our community center staff for reactivating the space.
Thank you for sharing, Director Bertrand. Any other reports from board members? I'll add a report. This morning, I attended the County Board of Supervisors hearing to name the facility on El Colegio the Hedges House of Hope in honor of Father John Stephen Hedges, who served admirably alongside all of us for 4 years as a member of the Board of Directors. And I was very overtaken with the level of profoundness with which Father John touched so many different people from so many different walks of life, volunteering across the country as a emergency personnel, working with our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness, his office at Pescadero Lofts, and supporting so many in the homeless service provider community, working as a chaplain for the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office, and working with us as our friendly board colleague who always had such a way to help steer us in the right direction with a friendly smile. And I'm very thankful to the Board of Supervisors for naming the facility, and I think we can all think of the Father every time that we walk or bike past that facility on El Colegio Road, and I'm thinking of him today. With that, we're gonna move to reports from standing and ad hoc committees. I think we heard a report from the ad hoc committee on events. Is there any other reports from any standing or ad hoc committees? Director Freeman.
The ad hoc committee for selecting a from the proposals for the parking study I've continued to have meetings with community organizations and is setting up meetings with individual community members, and progress continues. I'm not certain if there's anything. I thought I would at least say that. I don't know if there's anything that the other people on the committee would like to make certain gets added.
Well said, Jay.
All right, thank you for your report. So up next, we have a report from District Council. And Ross, I don't know if it's just me, but I don't think I can hear you. Looks like you're unmuted.
All right, there we go. Per usual, we're continuing to monitor the legal aspects of COVID-19. The County of Santa Barbara Department of Public Health, they issued a revised and superseding order on February 1st that stays in effect through March and is roughly tracking what we keep hearing out of the governor's office, with extensions of mask mandates and basically continuing to see the impacts of the Omicron variant. So once we get some type of significant update on when we can anticipate any type of change in policy, we'll let you know. But in the meantime, we keep on keeping on, and we'll be providing a resolution for a continuation of the remote meetings at the next meeting in February for consideration to cover the March time period. And I'll discuss that when it's before the board again. In other news, I also took part in the parking committee meeting that occurred last week, and I was able at least to see Jonathan in person in the community resource room. So that was a nice change to be able to see Jonathan and be in the same room with him, something that hasn't happened in 2 years, and really just provided an opportunity for the committee members to ask questions about the parking district powers. It's enumerated in 61-250, and to talk about the interplay between the government code provision that created and empowered IVCSD and some of the subordinate provisions of the parking district law, which are in a separate section of California law under the Streets and Highways Code. So it was a very good discussion. It seemed like the committee members really got a good understanding as to what the powers are, what the challenges are in moving forward. But it was a good opportunity to talk with the committee members, to walk them through the process, and definitely get the sense they're in a good place to go on to the next step in trying to address what has been a thorny problem in Isla Vista since well beyond my time there in the mid to late 90s. So that was a good meeting, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I have a quick question, and I see Director Freeman has his hand up too. So just to clarify, the governor's decision to let the indoor mask mandate and that order expire has no bearing on the remote meeting authority and powers and how that works.
Right, because the governor has indicated that the state of emergency is going to persist into the future, and that's one of the two. There are two prongs, and on the second of that, there's one or two options. So the first one is that the state of emergency has to exist, and the governor's indication has been it's going to be in effect for the foreseeable future. So when we hear that that's going to change, that will have a direct impact on whether AB 361 can be implemented, because that's a prerequisite. The second part of the analysis is either a local public health department with jurisdiction issues an order that contains certain findings, or B, the legislative body of the local agency makes the findings itself. But both of those are irrelevant if the governor ends up rescinding the declaration of statewide emergency. That's still required.
Thank you for that, Council. And I see it sounds like that was Jay's question too. So, all right. Next, we have a report from General Manager.
Cool. So the first thing on community engagement, we have the lighting walk on February 23rd at 6 p.m. So please come out for that at the community center and help walk around Isla Vista and assess where the lighting gaps are. I mean, we haven't done a review of lighting gaps since 2019 when we got more lights put in. So this is our reevaluation. You heard a lot about the Compost Collective today in Isla Vista Beautiful. They're back from being out sick and since mid last week. So we're getting back on track with them. The safety stations, everything has been status quo, but we are now close to having an agreement with IVRPD to get to the third location like we had planned to do 1 year ago. Nothing to report on the interpersonal violence investigator. I just got the November and December reports, so I'll send those to the board to review. IV Community Center programming. So I think you all might have seen that today we got the cafe going during the library hours, and they did see a huge bump. It was 11 people who came to the library service, which is usually 1 to 0 who come. So a lot more came today. I don't want to give a percent, but people came and showed up and enjoyed the blankets and the snacks and sat outside for a bit. So it was the first day of the program, so it's just going to get started. But Maya's been taking in a steady stream of reservations. We've got Jeffrey Jazz House coming in again at the end of February or beginning of March. And so things have been picking up there. She's been meeting a lot of people who are just coming to see the space. However, this is kind of related to the next thing I'll report on, which is we received the building assessment report. So that's one thing. If we want to have that presented at the next board meeting, we can do that. We've done it in the past. It didn't seem like something we need to have presented right at this point, but if it's an interest, we can do that. Maya made some minor improvements to the inside of the community center. We've got some shelves up and some plants on them, and starting to make plans to put up a cork board to have some art displayed. So all these things are designed to help with the sound echo as well. But we got some news from the county who let me know that they are moving forward with spending the CDBG grant, and that what they're going to be doing with that money, the $200,000, is that they're going to spend $136,000 on the shade structure, and that consists of 4 metal poles and like umbrella material. So that's how much they're going to spend on that, and then they're going to do $60,000 for the ADA path of travel from the sidewalk to the clinic, and then some signage to replace the directory that enters the 970 parking lot, and then one sign in front of the community center. So I asked Maya to help start design what the content, and I'm working with her on that. So we're moving forward, and then the $50,000 that we pledged will be available for other improvements. So we can talk about that when we have noticed that on the agenda, but just giving you the update of we applied for this a year ago. The work's finally being done. It will be complete by April because that is the legal requirement from the federal government. And the county said that construction might start this week or next, and hopefully, and will be over before April, because that's the federal requirement and our requirement if we were to have our spring festival on April 2nd. So I let them know about that. Our STEP grant survey is, I think I've said this multiple times, it is now actually finally done. And so it's ready to go out very shortly. I don't know if our committee mentioned it, but we did meet in person with the consultant that made a proposal for the planning study. So we just met them to hear more about their ideas and share our, what our discussion was. And then everyone got the notice. We're gonna do the retreat over Zoom on February 19th. It makes the most sense. We won't have the patio at the community center. It will most likely be under construction. It's one of the big reasons we wouldn't have an outdoor space that would work well for all of us to meet together. So that's about it for my report.
Any questions for Jonathan, Director Deschler?
I had a couple questions. One is I wanted to ask you for the February 23rd lighting walk. Is that something that's done in partnership with UCSB Police, IV Foot Patrol, County Public Works?
Yeah, Sydney reached out to law enforcement and Public Works and the 2nd District Office about it.
Awesome. And then I wanted to ask the shade structure, if that shade structure takes longer than expected, would that influence event that would be that we would have during the Deltopia weekend?
It would be a major impairment to the event as conceived right now, but they're telling me that they have to have the work done before April 1st or they'd lose the funding. They're moving forward quickly to have the project done before April 1st. So my hope is that the federal government's requirements are going to help us out here. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't feel confident about it. But they say they need to get started with construction now to meet that April deadline. Because I had originally asked, I didn't know this was going to happen so quickly. That was something I learned late last week. And I asked I had previously asked, could we do this CDBG project in the summer? And maybe about a month and a half ago, I had put that out there, and I don't think I heard back necessarily on that. So then I heard that we need to have it done by April. That's out of my hands.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any other questions from board members? Well, I'll add to Jonathan, your point about us receiving the building assessment. I do think that's something that we should consider having on a board agenda to have a presentation about, so that the public is aware of the condition, and the board has a good understanding of the findings. So something to consider. Okay, so with that, we are going to move into closed session. This is conference with real property negotiators, Government Code Section 54956.8. The properties are 970 and 976 Embarcadero del Mar. Negotiators are myself, Spencer Brandt, Board President, Bob Geist, Consultant, Jonathan Aboud, General Manager, Ross Trindle, District Counsel. Negotiating parties are the Community Services District and the County of Santa Barbara. Under negotiation are price and terms of payment. Director Bertrand.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to recuse myself from this item due to my employment with the County of Santa Barbara. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. Director Topliff?
Can we have a 5-minute break before we start?
Yes, that is amenable. We'll go to, let's, actually, should we go into closed session and then do it, and then have to read it again, or?
Should take a 5-minute break now before going into closed session, come back into open session, and then announce the time going into closed session.
Okay.
A little cumbersome, but it just works out better.
Got it. All right. We will take a 5-minute recess, and we will be back at 7:46.
Thank you.
All right. We are going to reconvene the Board of Directors of the Isla Vista Community Services District, and we are now going to enter closed session. Ross, do I need to read out the thing again?
No, you've already read it out.
Okay.
YouTube stream is there. It is.
It's up, Jay? All right. We are reconvening from closed session. Council, can you report out?
Yes, the Board of Directors met under real property negotiations is listed on the agenda under 54956.8 to discuss price and terms of payment. The Board of Directors received an update and had discussions, but there's no reportable action. Also, I'll note for the record that Director Bertrand did not take part in any of the discussions. He recused himself prior to the board convening to closed session, and he was absent from all of the discussions. That concludes my report out of closed session. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. With that, our next meeting date will take place on February, sorry, I lost the agenda, on February 22nd at 6 p.m. here on Zoom. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn, except I just want to mention we have the February 19th meeting, right? And that's a Brown Act meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for sharing that.
Will second.
I move to adjourn.
I will second.
Seconded by Freeman. Any public comment or discussion? Let's do roll call.
Dr. Brett,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Topliff,
Yes.
Deshler,
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.